But let's get on with Mike Grimm here again, who's I mentioned was a radio play-by-play for Gopher basketball and Gopher football. How's it going, Mike? How you been handling things here in quarantine?
Yeah, doing well. Thank you for having me on. I'm not outside like Kevin Fallness was.
Yeah,
That man, it must be nice. I'm in my basement. I've got a little home studio, as you can see.
yeah, it's
We got
awesome.
some sound deadening walls just to make sure we don't echo when I do my real life job. So I thought we might as well zoom from there here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird. I was telling you guys before we
Yeah.
came on. For 30 years I've been in this business, and for the most that time, weekends have been when you work on weekends. You've got
Yeah.
Saturday football, you've got Saturday or Sunday basketball, travel days.
Mm-hmm.
For much of the summertime, I didn't have a lot of Gopher stuff, but I'd be coaching my son or daughter's sports teams. And here we are on a Saturday. I mowed the lawn yesterday, so I have nothing going today. I stayed up late and slept in. That's the crux of my Saturday today.
Yeah, watching movies, catching up on the Netflix or whatever people are doing now. Keep trying to stay busy. You just mentioned, so you were watching the fall. Did you watch the entire Fallness interview?
I caught the last little bit. I caught how he was suggesting that DT carried me.
Okay.
And the sole reason that is because he's way stronger than I am. I could never carry him.
Yeah.
You see, I mean,
right.
DT
I get
looks
what
like
he's
he's
saying.
playing the
Yeah.
NFL now,
Do you think he was attacking maybe your broadcasting skills, maybe, or?
Probably. Knowing Kevin, he's not a very nice guy, so I'm sure he was. Me on the other hand would say there's not a better intermission host in all of the NHL than Kevin Fallon.
Yeah.
But if he wants to take shots, so be it.
He can take shots, whatever.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I can't take shots. He's good. So maybe maybe he speaks the truth. That's probably the case.
Yeah.
Nice of a guy.
Too nice.
Now you're an Iowa guy. Did
Yes.
you grow up a Hawkeye fan or Iowa State? What was your team?
We're just gonna come right out swinging, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
I did
Because
actually.
yeah.
I grew up a Hawkeye fan.
Okay.
We had my family had season tickets to Iowa games, so I spent much of my Saturdays as a young man at Kinnick, watching Iowa play. Obviously, love the Big Ten, which is why the role I'm in now is awesome. My wife is from here, and her family had been season ticket holders to Gopher basketball, especially for a number of years. So it's been an interesting thing. Back in the 90s, when I first started in radio in Iowa, if Minnesota would beat the Hawkeyes, then my in-laws would call and sing the rouser on the old time message machine. The voicemail where you have to hit the button. There's now you just hit 7 on your phone or whatever.
Exactly.
And so now we're all on the same side, so it's kind of cool. And I do have so many friends, and a lot of my family still lives there, so that's still my favorite trip. You grow up going to a place, you feel pretty cool when you go back and you're able to broadcast a game from there.
Now, does it ever get weird when Iowa faces off against the Gophers in the sports you call, or are you more of a Gopher guy now?
Yeah, for sure. I want Minnesota to win. The thing is, you get to know, the people involved, and that's really at the end of the day, who you're rooting for anyway. No matter what, you have going, whatever the color of the uniform, or what school it is, or what have you. And it's funny now, having kind of been on both sides of it. I do get a kick, and if anything, it's kind of taught a lesson. And I think quite honestly, I think we see it in politics now, even with this coronavirus, how toxic stuff can get, and how people refuse to see. They just assume the other side's wrong, right? Like there's no middle ground. Well, I've been on both sides of it, and I can promise you there are good people on both sides. Like my Iowa buddies are like, "Well, PJ Fleck is a fraud, isn't he?" I'm like, "No, not. He's as
Genuine. Yeah.
He's genuine and real as any coach I've ever covered. What he is what he is.
Yeah.
And then I've got people on the Minnesota side that want to say Kirk Ferentz is he's just old and stodgy, and I'm like, couldn't be a nicer guy.
No, I know.
I was there the day he was hired at the news conference there. So when you can look at it on both sides, and like when the Gophers play Iowa, it's kind of like now. For me, it's like when you take on your little brother, you want to beat him, and I'm not one of those guys that's a who hates Iowa, we hate Iowa, they lose every game.
Like the students?
If they have success, it's fine. I just want the Gophers to have more success.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you mentioned like going on to like PJ Fleck being a real guy, I know a lot of people, I hear a lot of people, mainly like some of my Wisconsin friends and colleagues, saying, oh, he's just super fake, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I mean, he actually, puts his money where his mouth is. He actually does what he's saying. He's not like when I grew up watching Gopher football, when I really got into it when TCF Bank Stadium opened, we had Tim Brewster. And a lot of people talk about him as just being this cheerleader. He really didn't do anything other than just talk. So I think a lot of people were maybe kind of shell-shocked by his presence, thinking, oh, he's just another Tim Brewster. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that before, that comparison.
100% all the time. And, the interesting thing is it'd be one thing if PJ Fleck came in, signed his contract, every 2 weeks gets that big paycheck, slapped up some slogans on the locker room wall, and then that was it. Just kind of went about his business. But that's not the case. Like no. Literally what is happening, and he has like a 3-ring binder of stuff that players have to follow that he implement. I mean, there's more. They're doing more work than most people are. Now, some might say that isn't smart. I think though it's like he's running a corporation in essence, and so if you're a fraud, like many people might suggest, or a phony. And we have so many people in this market, it drives me nuts to run on the watch for frauds. Like we have enough columnists in this town, like, he's a fraud, that's a fraud, when actually, if you're trolling, aren't you kind of a fraud if you're a troll? Follow what I'm saying? But anyway, the point being is he's actually doing more work. If you're a fraud, you don't stand up for what you believe in. And he is insistent that his players go to class. And look, is it perfect? Of course not. Will there be some things that won't always go right? Of course. And at the end of the day, the Gophers had a wonderful season last year, 11 wins for the time since 1905, all that stuff. Let's say 5 years from now, just for the sake of our discussion, the Gophers fall off the face of the earth and they're no good. And let's say PJ Fleck gets fired. It won't be because he's a fraud that things didn't work. If that happens, he's as sincere as there is. He's genuine. He put, like you said, he puts his money where his mouth is. He's substance and style, which there's nothing wrong with that. Now, I think they're on a trajectory where they're not going to fall off the face of the earth. Recruiting, as you guys know, has gone well. It's a fickle game. Sports is fickle, though. I mean, it can turn quickly, so you kind of hold your breath. But the roster he's assembling and the people he has back, and the way that he has constructed, like I said, he's got this 3-ring binder. The way he has constructed things, as he likes to say, the culture you build sustains itself, and you can withstand stuff. And when stuff doesn't go the way you plan, then that can help sustain it. So he's as genuine. Now he's different. Well, I like it. I mean, I'm a big fan. And he says he's not for everybody, and that's true. And part of that we're starting to see as the roster shakes out is you have to know what you're getting into to come here. And the more of that you have on the roster, the more people that have bought in. I don't care whatever it is, whether you're running a corporation, whether you're running a hardware store, whether it's us three here, the more you buy into the concept, the more success you're going to have.
Exactly. Yep.
Now, as far as the class of 2021 coming in here, I've seen they've been as high as rated as 5th in the country. What are some names that stick out to you?
Well, technically, I can't. I'm not a coach. Coaches can't talk specific about each player until they're signed. And technically, just to play it safe, I can't either, because technically, I'm a representative of the school.
I mean, we can ask you, like, as a whole, what are you like? How excited are you for that class of 2021? If we can ask
I can talk in general terms. And in general terms, they got nine verbal commitments in the month of April. Which is amazing. Depending on which of the major recruiting services you pay attention to, they're either 6th or 9th. I think right now. Now, some of that is because there's quantity. The Gophers have 13 current verbals, and some of the big names, the Blue Bloods, maybe have 6 or 7. So they're likely not going to finish in the top 10. But you also have to understand history with Minnesota. And I think it's a good chance this will end in a top 20 class, which is
insane.
It's never better than what they've had in 10, 15 years.
Crazy.
And And so if you could, and he has stacked that up with classes that have been as high as the school has had ever, 3 straight years. So now let's say you put together a top 20 class, and then have another nice year, 9, 10, 11 wins, whatever it might be. Let's hope that we play for that matter. But let's say that happens. Then all of a sudden you can get into another top 20 class. And let's be honest, the West is no, it's no weak sister anymore. Iowa is also currently in the top 10. Wisconsin's in the top 15. Scott Frost probably is not going away at Nebraska. Northwestern just got another transfer quarterback. We'll see if this one works. The one that they got last year didn't per se. Lovie Smith at Illinois is getting all kinds of transfers.
They turned it up at the end of last year.
Yeah, they were
really good.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, the West is no picnic. And Purdue's recruiting at a high level with Jeff Brahman. They paid him, $75 million to stay there for however long that deal was. So it's not going to be easy, no matter what you look at. But you gotta, if you have, at the end of the day, if you can assemble a roster with talent that's buying into the message, and it looks like that's where it's headed. I couldn't be more excited about the future.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like you said, I mean, they could end up just being in the top 20. I mean, and there's so many there's other Big Ten teams that are right in the mix with us. But just to still see, when you go on a rankings board, you just see the Minnesota M, looped in with the Clemsons, Alabamas, and Michigans. It's insane because you never see that. No. And I wrote an article here on our little blog post on our page called like the Gophers have entered the Twilight Zone, because it's like you've never seen, it's so weird seeing them in like a top 10 recruiting class. And I had like a graph where it showed all their recruiting class rankings since they've ranked it since 2000, and they barely even could graze the top 40, top 30. And granted, like that's just based on rankings. They still put together excellent teams, some cool teams, but just as far as from a ranking standpoint, Fleck is getting some players we probably wouldn't have got 5 years ago. So it's pretty cool to see.
Well, you look at who they're beating out, and they're beating out teams that they haven't beaten out before. They're on a case, and they're not going to win all of them, but they beat Nebraska on a kid. They've beaten Baylor on a kid from Texas. They've beaten Iowa on a kid. And then when you see a kid that has multiple offers, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Texas Tech, and all of a sudden he's deciding to go to the Gophers, that's important. That hasn't always been the case. And as you said, they've had some success. I mean, and it's not in any way trying to a knock on any previous coaches. The Jerry Kill regime was more about finding diamonds in the roughs, these gems. Yeah. And it was oftentimes, okay, you've got this kid from Chicago who has an offer from Toledo and Northern Illinois, and he's getting interest from Purdue, and he chooses Minnesota, which is fine. Yeah. That staff was unbelievable at developing those kids. They had a team that played above what the recruiting ranking was every year, which tells you those guys knew what they were doing. Now you have a staff that I think also knows what it's doing, but starts at a higher base level, so to speak. Now you maybe can be in that mix and contend and do those things. The other thing that I'd say, not only are they getting kids maybe they haven't traditionally gotten in terms of rankings, they've now gotten these kids without campus visits. For forever here at Minnesota, we heard coaches say, man, if we can just get the kid talked into coming to campus and seeing it in June, we really have a chance. Well, these guys have talked them, a lot of these guys, into committing without a visit. And they've done these virtual tours. And PJ Fleck and his staff, really, guys, were on the front end of these virtual tours. Now all the schools are doing it. But Minnesota was, the one thing Fleck will not, this is all part of that. He's not, he's not some guy that's just collecting a paycheck. I mean, he's on the front end of this stuff. He gets it. He understands it. It's like a machine, and he's setting the trend. People are doing what he does, and that's new for some of us in terms of following the program. That you have a guy that is setting the trend, and that's good news.
Yep, totally.
Now I'm going to switch the gears a little bit. The NFL draft just completed. And as you know, the Gophers had 5 players selected, the most in any class they've had in 20 years. 2 players I want to focus on, Antoine Winfield Jr. and Tyler Johnson. They both got drafted to Tampa Bay. What did Tampa Bay get, and do you see them making an impact anytime soon, or when do you think that'll happen?
Yeah, I do. So here, this is kind of interesting. I went on, after Tyler got drafted by the Bucs, I went on their webpage to look at their depth chart. I was just curious because they got Godwin and they got Evans.
Yeah.
So those are going to be 1 and 2. It doesn't matter. Now, my thought was, who else is on that roster? I don't follow it close enough to know who their slot guy is or whatever. So I go on there, and there's really nobody I recognize. Doesn't mean that there aren't good players. I don't know. So I think he has a real chance to be the number 3. And he's got the greatest quarterback in the history of professional football throwing to him. So, and then you got Gronkowski. Who knows? Let's see what kind of physical condition and where he's at now. But if you have those 2 studs on the outside, Evans and Godwin, and you've got Gronkowski running the seam, it seems to me defenses will likely try to, bracket the outside and do things. Tyler Johnson, because we've seen Tom Brady will throw to 10 or 12 different guys. Tyler Johnson, I think, does have a chance to be an impact. Now, when I looked that up, I also noticed this is the team webpage, Buccaneers.com, just like on depth chart. They already have Antoine Winfield as their starting free safety on the depth chart. So I think he will be a contributor right away on that.
That'll be cool to see.
I also think Winfield could potentially contribute in ways that he didn't here at Minnesota very often, and that's maybe in the return game. I interviewed Coughlin a couple. He had the one against New Mexico State here, that amazing return, maybe the best I've seen. And the Gophers have had some good returners. Demetrius Douglas, of course, who had one against Wisconsin in that big win to get the act. But so he could potentially do that. He'll be certainly a special teams guy, which he was here anyway. And they have him on the team webpage already in as the starting free safety. So I think both of those guys probably got drafted under their value. And Tyler, I don't know what the reason was for his drop. I suppose they think straight line speed, but after watching him for 4 years, I think he can be highly productive in the NFL.
Yeah. I don't see speed as an issue, really. He's those crossing routes that he ran this year. It's him and Bateman were just fun to watch.
And Brady's had guys in that Patriots offense that haven't exactly been speed merchants that have produced pretty well. I mean, I think Edelman's a good player, but I don't think he is world class speed. And there have been others, over the course of time there that have been quote unquote possession receivers that have been able to feast with Tom Brady throwing them footballs.
Definitely. Now, speaking of basketball really quick, I know obviously that season was cut short. That kind of sucks. And we don't know if, the Gophers would have had to probably won the Big Ten tournament to get in. But a game that I went to I don't know if you remember this, you probably do. I went to that Maryland game in February at the barn when they had the lead the whole game until the last 1.3 seconds. I mean, were you freaking out? I mean, what was going on in the booth when that happened? They hit a 3 with a second left.
Yeah, it was. There were a few of those. The Iowa game.
Yeah, I was going to say it. Yeah.
This team, the weird thing about this team, and I know people wanted to rip it. The weird thing about this team was, even in that Maryland game, they basically outplayed Maryland for 30 minutes for sure, led that game for 39 minutes. And they had the Iowa game up 8 with 2.5 minutes to go. They were up on Wisconsin. I think it was 5 with 2 minutes to go, or 3 with 2 minutes to go. I don't remember. But there were a bunch of those games. Had they been able to hang on to some of those, they would have, been playing in the tournament.
Yeah, exactly.
Had the tournament.
Yep.
And I don't know what the answer is as to why they just couldn't figure out late in games.
Yeah.
Like that Maryland game, and again, people will say, "Oh, it's the Gopher announcer just kind of making excuses for the Gophers."
They might rip you on Gopher hole, but
yeah, great. But the fact of the matter is, there are games like Minnesota could have played that game and taken it to that point, with a minute to go. And from that point on, played that 100 times, and they probably would have won 92 of them.
Yeah.
So they got a little unlucky. The guy hits a contested 27-footer. Yeah. The guy 31% three-point shooter. I think he was something like 2 for his previous 16 3. I think it was I can't remember who hit it now. It was so the guy knocks down the 3, and you get a little unlucky. Now, did they let things leak away? Yes, it's at Madison, it's a scramble situation. The ball's leaking out toward half court. Gabe Kelcher's within a fraction of picking it up, and somehow they poke it.
Yep.
It rolls to one of their guys who throws to their senior. I'm trying to remember who that was that hit it in the corner, and then he knocks down the 3. Their 5th-year guy.
Yeah.
And so he's from Wisconsin too. I can't believe I can't remember his name. But anyway, that's what happens when you get old and you've been locked up for 2 months.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, so weird stuff has happened.
Yes.
It was some out of their control, some in their control. And it was frustrating, and you lost momentum. And I would say that was my 14th year of doing basketball. That 2-week stretch was the most it wore me out, quite honestly. And it wasn't, losing I try to remove a little, and now people listen and they say, man, you go crazy and you have fun. I still do try to remove emotion sometime after the game, try not to get, like, I don't want to spend the flight home just dejected or, come home and kick my dog or anything.
Yeah.
I don't have a dog, but anyway, but that was that stretch. I can't imagine what it was like for the players and coaches who were living and dying it. But it just wore me out. It was just tiresome to play well. And then to have no reward for it, and then to get roasted. And I'm not even saying that was unjust. I think it's fair. They couldn't figure out ways to close the game, but to have all that unfold that way, it just was it was a fatiguing thing, man. You just fatigued at the end of that 2-week stretch. Yeah,
definitely. As for fans, it was just so tiring to watch them. But I can't imagine you're in there every game calling it. That had to be crazy. But I definitely think like a fatigue was definitely a factor. They had a low bench depth and all that. But just luck also came into that. I know I would love to keep talking Gopher basketball and football as well. But we only have you on here till 4. But I got to ask you one more question before we go into like a rapid fire segment, which I'll explain here in a second. How do you feel about being on the K-Fan soundboard? The one up high for it. How do you feel about that? They play it a lot.
Yeah, it's fine. I like it. I have people ask about it a lot. Yeah. So the backstory behind that was the Buffalo game. It was PJ Fleck's first game.
Yep.
So it was a Thursday night game at TCF Bank Stadium. I think it was the first touchdown of the game. I think it was the second touchdown of Tyler Johnson's career, the first that year. Connor Rhoda was the quarterback, and he threw a pass that was high.
Yeah.
And so just as a backdrop, so he jumps up and he's got this great 40-inch vertical, and he makes this great catch, lands, and that's the other thing about Tyler. His balance is so good. Stayed on his feet, withstood contact, and then went like 60 yards or whatever it was for a touchdown. And my call was he went up high for it.
Yeah,
meaning
right.
He's up high for it. So, and that's a Thursday night, and I'll never forget. I drove to work after the game, and because I do some work for the Minnesota News Network. Fallness and I tag team on that, and so my next day I was doing a little work for that, and saw some people at the office, and they're like, "Hey man, they won. How'd it go?" And I'm like, "Good. I thought I nailed the call. We kept the train on the tracks for the first night. You're always worried something's going to go crazy." And they won PJ Fleck's debut a little closer than we thought. So I go home. I get home like at 2 a.m. after everything, and I wake up at like 9 a.m. No, it was more. It was earlier than that because the Power Trip was still on the air. And I look, and I've got like 58 notifications and about 25 text messages, and I'm like, oh no. And panic sets in, like, what happened? Did I say something? And so
am I in trouble?
Cove texted and said, "Hey dude, we're trying to call you." Because I had my phone on silent. Trying to call you, you got to come on. I'm like, oh, brother. So apparently the backstory, earlier that morning, they're playing the highlight, and Hockey, or one of the guys on the Power Trip, says, how did Grimm think of that? That's a genius call. And I'm like, what? And he's like, to win a pie for him. Like, we giving away a pie. And I'm like, and so they asked me about it, and it was great. It did kind of blow up. We had people making hats and T-shirts. The Gopher marketing department, the rest of that year, every time Tyler Johnson caught a pass, and a lot of people didn't catch this, they would flash a pie on the scoreboard, like an apple pie for like 2 seconds.
Really?
And then they made video where on that play he was running with a pumpkin pie in his hand or something. So they got some mileage out of it. I still say it. And then even like in the bowl game, the Outback Bowl, when he made that great catch in the back of the end zone, we all thought he was out of bounds. So the call wasn't that great because I'm like, it's caught, but he's not in, and the refs were staring at each other. So the call stunk. And then we're watching the replays, and they give him the touchdown, and then I had to make reference to it. I'm like, and as someone once said, he went up high for it. So there you go.
In his last game ever, that was a ridiculous catch. Just a circus catch.
I still hear it once in a while on KFan. It's great. All right, now moving it quickly now. In the final minute here, we're going to do a quick rapid-fire segment. You may have seen us do it with Fallness, but we're just going to ask you some crazy would-you-rather or hypothetical questions, and you just give your best answer. So, you ready to go?
Yes.
All right. So, would you rather spend the rest of your life blind or in an Olive Garden?
I heard that one. I'm saying now I'd like, as if the quarantine hasn't added already,
Yeah.
enough pounds. I would do Olive Garden because I do like to
Yeah.
see and I do like to eat.
Yes.
So if those are the two options, I'll eat pasta
Yeah.
and salad. I do like the Olive Garden salad and have sight. So I'll gain weight even more than I should. But yeah, Olive Garden all the way.
But and those breadsticks, man. Ooh.
Yeah, right, right.
If you were given an all expenses paid trip to Cleveland, would you take it?
I'm in. I'll travel anywhere. Yeah,
you go.
I'm. And when the schedules always come out for the Gophers, I'm always hoping it's someplace new, a non-conference
Definitely.
game here or there,
Cool.
Cleveland would be new. I've been there, but it's been a while.
Is it pronounced hot dish or casserole?
Neither.
Oh.
Ooh,
Yeah,
okay.
we really haven't had it.
Really?
Being from Iowa, it would be casserole. Now we live in Minnesota, it'd be hot dish.
Okay.
But we don't make it, and I don't eat it. So I'll say pancakes.
There you go. I'll take it. If a movie was made about your life, who would play you?
Well, I think based just on the rugged good looks, Brad Pitt.
There you
probably.
go. I can see it. I can see it a little bit. There you go.
Sure.
Would you rather have a head the size of a tennis ball or the size of a watermelon?
Did you ask Fallness this question?
I did, yeah.
I didn't hear what he said.
Yeah. What did he say?
I can't remember, honestly.
He might have said a watermelon. I think he did.
His head is the size of a watermelon.
Oh,
shots
cheap
fired.
shot.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I did take the shot. I was waiting.
You had
I was-
to.
You said you could
It's the
take
least you can
shots.
do. I
Come
mean,
on.
he ripped you, so.
Exactly. I would say watermelon. Yes.
Cool.
Means a big brain, smart.
Minneapolis or St. Paul?
Lakeville.
Okay.
Okay.
Lakeville. All right.
Yeah, my
Great
family
city.
lives
Lakeville Brewing Company.
Yeah.
Good spot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Been there. Yes.
In self-defense, how many fifth graders could you fend off at one time? In self-defense situation.
Oh, yes, of course. Only in self-defense. Fallness said a dozen, so I got to be better than that. I'll say a baker's dozen, 13.
There you go.
There you go.
You gotta one up them. Would you rather wear a shirt that's kind of itchy all the time or wear a pair of shoes that have a pebble in it?
Pebble. I'm not an itchy guy. I hate
I
itchy. Drives me
agree.
nuts.
I agree with that. What's more
Pebble.
realistic, ghosts or aliens?
Ooh, how about this? That like the Pentagon basically confirmed
Yeah.
there's UFOs, right? Last
Yeah.
week, and
Essentially, yeah.
had that been like 6 months ago, it'd have been on the news every night for that'd be like
Yeah,
like if someone
headlines.
would have said 5 years ago, hey, we've
Right.
confirmed UFOs really exist. That would have been the lead on CNN and Fox News and everything else for.
Fifth
But because we're in the middle of coronavirus, it was a
one
a
cares.
passing thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's
I just
UFOs,
briefly
but,
saw it
hey,
online.
back to this. Yeah.
Whatever.
No big deal. It's fine.
So I'll go aliens.
Yeah.
Here you go.
No big deal.
Yeah, I'm curious about this last one here. You have one sport to watch the rest of your life. What is it?
It's a toss-up between college football
Mm-hmm.
and my kids playing softball and baseball.
There you go. Okay.
So, but as we age, I don't know if I'd want to watch my son as a 32-year-old play baseball.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
or my daughter. So I'll go with college football. It's such a fun sport. You got the pageantry of it, the tradition,
Yeah.
and so many cool venues. So we'll do college football.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, that'll do it, Mike. We look forward to hearing your calls on Gopher football and basketball games, next season. But thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, sounds good. And yeah, let's get that money. Keep cranking out for a great cause.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Keeping it going up. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, take care. Yeah,
Bye.
thanks.